Can't believe we're halfway through November already. Welcome into another edition of the Hops and Spirits Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Green. Got another great episode for you this week. We go a little bit on the whiskeys, the spirit side, but we also dabble in the hops too. It's a nice mix and match this week. And we also give you the first taste of our Things We Love holiday giveaway 2020. We got a little bit of that on this episode. Remember, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Hops Spirits, all one word. Social media is where you can keep up with all our shenanigans, see what episodes we've got coming up, what other fun goodies we have going on. So you want to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Hops Spirits, all one word. But let's get into this episode and not waste any time. And joining us here for her second time, yes, that's right, she's our first repeat guest. It's Nicole Austin. She's the master distiller and general manager for Cascade Hollow Distilling down in Tennessee. They're better known as the home of George Dickel Tennessee whiskey, but that's not what she's here to talk about this week. Nicole, welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me.
Now, last time we talked, I know you were very excited. You couldn't tell us much or really anything. I'm guessing this is what you were excited about, the Cascade Moon series that you guys just launched?
Yes, that's exactly it. And I'm a terrible secret keeper. So, I'm sure it wasn't too hard to figure out. Yes, this is exactly what I was very excited about and probably dropped many hints, but couldn't exactly say.
Now, the Cascade Moon, for those that don't know, it's a brand new Cascade Hollow kind of brand. It's not the George Dickel Tennessee whiskey. It's its own, correct?
Yes, that's right. And this is my first release in this role that's not George Dickel branded, right? So this is the first one, as you announced sort of at the beginning, right? My title is General Manager and Distiller for Cascade Hollow Distilling Co. And we have had at Cascade Distillery in the past other brands besides George Dickel. There was at one time a brand that was fairly big called Cascade Pure Whiskey that I thought was really interesting, but it has long since fallen into antiquity. But that was the idea always, not making me the distiller for George Dickel, but for Cascade Hollow, to allow for kind of a reprisal of some old brands and maybe creation of some new brands. So this is my first kind of foray into doing that.
And then the Cascade Moon, obviously you mentioned it's kind of an ode to the Cascade Pure. It even has the mellow as moonlight tagline. How much did you want to make it kind of, an ode back to that original Cascade Pure whiskey?
I would say that was more of a point of inspiration, right? And we don't have very much information about what that actual whiskey was like. We know very little. And that was, it's a tiny bit frustrating, but also sort of freeing because it means, you can just sort of take it as a jumping off point, a point of inspiration, and you could sort of see their concept, that they had this like really cool arty advertising and, this tagline about being mellow as moonlight. You could kind of tell a little bit what it was about, but nothing about the whiskey. And so that means you can, sort of take it as a point of inspiration, but jump off into entirely your own direction. And so that's what I did here. And it's, it's a nod to the past, but it's in no way an attempt at recreating something that we don't even know what it was.
And I'll say the label is really cool. Like you said, it's kind of got that artsy, it really is. These are limited editions. It's got a cool label and it's a cool concept because on this first one, edition number 1, you were inspired by the tasting notes of gose-style beers, which that's my favorite. Those kind of sour, unique fruitiness. What made you go that route? Are you do you enjoy some gose-style beers, or did you just kind of use that as the inspiration?
So I very much do enjoy gose-style beers, and something that I was really inspired, looking at gose is I think the beer space has a lot that can teach us in whiskey, and something that I think there's some folks that they're doing really well right now is making creative beers that are still really palatable, really easy to drink, right? That, craft beer in the 90s and the early 2000s, a lot of my experience of that was like, massive hoppy beers, or like it was challenging, right? Like challenging beers. And that industry has sort of evolved to be really creative, but not necessarily always challenging. You know, some of them are just super like friendly, drinkable beers. And I really like that as a concept. And that's something, you know, conceptually that I wanted to bring into whiskey. But the Gose inspiration specifically came out of, you know, during the sort of review process where I was reviewing all the, you know, aged whiskeys that we had at Cascade Hollow. There was this particular group of whiskey that had been aging in refill casks, right? So really interesting to me, you know, a 16 years old refill cask whiskey. So of course it can't be sold as a bourbon or a Tennessee whiskey because of those refill casks. And so I was really intrigued by it. And it, you know, it was light. It had this really present, like fruity character, but it also had this really strong, like brothy, savory, almost saline type character to it. And I thought that was really interesting, but it wasn't on its own, you know, particularly balanced, right, or palatable, like immediately on its own. And I knew I wanted to think like, how can I take this and make it, you know, palatable and balanced and lovely? And the assistant that I was nosing with, Rachel, she was like, you know, this reminds me of a beer, right? Like, you know, you're exactly right. Like this is, and you know, how would they make this balanced in beer? You know, and I thought of Gose, and it's sort of, it's like kind of salty, sweet, you know, balancing, and that sort of fruit notes and the sort of salt notes, and how they work together to create this beer that's just like really lovely and drinkable, and also kind of weird and interesting. You know, I wanted to capture that spirit, and it really inspired me for how I could take this character that was really interesting and make it, you know, balanced and lovely. So kind of hunted for some other whiskeys that would really like punch up and highlight the fruit notes, and that's what I blended onto that base to create this spirit. So that's what I mean when I say inspired by Gose. You know, it's not, there's no salt in it. It's not Gose beer or anything like that. It was more just a framework for thinking about how I could take this really interesting and strong character and help it be, you know, balanced and lovely.
I was gonna say I love that concept, and I was fortunate enough to get to try the edition number one, and you really do get those savory notes. But I think what really shined for me was that fruitiness, you know, kind of on that back end, and I really enjoyed it, whether it was sipping or you know, I even did a little mixing, so I could sit there and kind of enjoy one with my wife, and it was very good either way, and I really think that showcases your ability to find how to kind of blend those unique flavors together.
Yeah, it should be, you know, I hope you found it to be pretty, like maybe intriguing, but also just still really sippable, you know,
Mm-hmm.
really approachable. Because that's part of what I think is so great about that style of beer, and something I was really trying to bring to this, you know, that it's like curious, but not harsh.
Yeah, it's definitely very approachable, and like I said, I really enjoyed uh, the notes that you get with it. I know this is something that's not going to be just a one off in the sense that, you know, you're only going to do one Cascade Moon and call it quits on that. You've got another edition that's supposed to come out this year.
Yeah.
Is that something that you guys are looking to do, one, two a year, maybe something on those lines? Is that how you envision this project going forward?
You know, I'm really working not so much to any particular number target, but more the idea of Cascade Moon is, you know, points of inspiration. So I guess it depends, you know, how much inspiration I get and how excited I get about liquids. And you know, when if I find something that I'm excited about, I'm gonna definitely, you know, put it out. That could be 9 in a year, it could be 10 in a year. You know, I don't know. It all depends on like what I think is worth releasing. So there's not going to be any particular cadence, which I know is probably a bit, you know, frustrating and annoying. But that's whiskey, you know. If you never know when it's going to be ready.
I was gonna say, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, and I think that's how you make sure you keep producing really good things. But like I said, I do know you in the releases you mentioned there will be another one. What can people expect though on these lines? Is it just going to be something that whatever inspires you, or you know, do you kind of have a few little things that you kind of want to keep similar each time, or how will it work?
Yeah, I hope so. All of them should be curious, you know, and unexpected and interesting, but still really, you know, approachable and inclusive, right? So that's the framework that I'm thinking about, you know, but there's no, in terms of particular flavor profiles or some particular base spirit, you know, nothing like that. I think hopefully it'll be all over the map, and that's the whole idea, you know, to be future thinking and creative.
And then, when we talked previously, you got your start, so to speak, at Kings County, and you got to do a lot of fun things there because you guys were just, you were little guys, could kind of do whatever you wanted. You weren't a big brand. Does this kind of style take you back to those days where you got to really experiment a little more and kind of try new things?
Oh, exactly. I mean, and that's exactly the idea. Like, part of what's so exciting for me about this is just to even have a mechanism at all to do releases that are this small, which, you know, is actually pretty unusual inside of Diageo, right? Like, they didn't really have a way to do something, you know, this small, right? Like, there's only a few hundred cases of this whiskey. And that is a scale that I was very comfortable operating in. And it does allow for a lot of creativity, right? It's a way that you can, you know, you can make something a little bit weirder if you're not worried about how to sell 50,000 cases of it. And this was something, it's a mechanism that I'm really excited to have because it is exactly the sort of way of working that I'm used to, you know, from other craft distilleries, to be able to like just be a little bit more experimental and try things out at a smaller scale. It's, you know, it's a lower risk and it allows you to be a little bit more creative. So I'm really excited to have this, you know, as a mechanism. It helps me, you know, it's a way I'm comfortable working and that I really like. It allows you to just have a little bit more fun.
And then was there any, I don't want to say pushback, or was this a hard sell? Because as you mentioned, this is not something Diageo, which is a big name, owns a lot of big brands, is used to doing. I mean, did they go, I don't know about that, or were they just on board and were like, we trust you, go for it?
Pretty much the latter. I mean, certainly folks were like curious, you know, like, it's what now? Like, you know, it's a beer. It's related to beer. What are you doing? You know, definitely folks were curious, but you know, I think they trust me, and I have a pretty good relationship with everybody in the company, you know, that I've worked with, and you know, have a super good team, and I think not just me, but the whole team, you know, the company really has faith in.
And then, when we talked before as well, you were able to, when you were working on George Dickel, the Bottle and Bond, you were able to win Whiskey of the Year. Did that kind of maybe also open up some more
Yeah,
doors for you?
that definitely helped. Yeah. And actually, big news just out this week that the fall 2008 edition of the Bottle and Bond, which was the one that came out this year, was just the top rated whiskey in the fall 2020 edition of Whiskey Advocate. It got a 95-point rating, which was actually a point higher than the Whiskey of the Year from last year was rated. So I'm pretty massively excited about that.
Well, and all your hard work and all the many, many samples that you had them pull so you could try was well worth it, right?
Yes. Oh, yes. It's so hard, you know, the work that I do.
But I mean, kind of even, going back, obviously with the Bottled and Bond, you were trying different things, trying to put stuff together. Is that just kind of what you do?
Weeks and weeks. Yeah. I was so paranoid about it. And I'm so grateful and so honored that it's paying off.
I was going to say, does that, last time I said, does it make it harder to trump? Now you've done it twice in a row. Are you a little nervous about next year, or are you already working on next year?
Next year, right? I don't know how many times they've ever given that score out. Yeah. Hey, it's good for me, right? I just keep looking
absolutely. Absolutely. And then I guess one of my questions for you, obviously with the new whiskey, Cascade Moon, even the George Dickel Bottle and Bond, which, by the way, my father-in-law tried it not too long after I had gotten the sample, and he liked it so much he went out and bought I think 2 more bottles.
I love that. You'll have to tell him about the rating so he can feel really excited he got his hands on it.
Yeah, so he definitely enjoys it. I definitely enjoy it too. But is that something that you do a lot of down there right now? Is just kind of go and look at the so-called library of the different barrels you have
Yeah.
and different recipes and just kind of see what you can maybe put together?
Yes. Yes, it is. Especially now that I'm traveling so much less. It's been a real silver lining for me to get to spend a lot more time, in the distillery and with the whiskeys. And it's the best part of my job. I don't always have time to do it, but I really try and make time. And it's my absolute favorite part of my job. I feel ridiculously lucky.
Well, you're doing a ridiculously good job too, Nicole.
Thank
And
you.
my last question for you is, what's next for you all? Because obviously, last time I asked that, you gave me a great tease,
Yes.
basically for Cascade Moon. Any other good teases, or is it
Yeah,
just kind of seeing
sure.
what else you got?
I mean, this is what happens when you leave me in the distillery for 6 months. I'm planning all sorts of things. We've got, um, so we have this very successful Dickel single barrel program. And we also have a lot of really stellar old whiskeys. So you should pretty soon here see something coming out of that, which is like the world's worst big teaser. I mean, basically putting out another single barrel, right? Um, so I'm very excited about that. And, the next edition of Cascade Moon is coming. And then, starting kind of next year, a lot of these have been really small scale, sort of just by their nature. And, bottle to bond, I've really been trying to make as much as I can. I didn't expect this level of success. So, starting beginning of next year, I'm trying to think about what can I do, that will be available, right? Like I I always, as a whiskey lover, feel a tiny bit of guilt putting something out that is not just going to be always available.
Hmm.
And so I'm trying to think about something for next year that's going to be a little bit bigger and a little bit more widely available. So, as many people as possible can really appreciate what's coming out of this amazing distillery.
Well, like I said, I can't wait to see what's next, Nicole, because the George Dickel bottle and bond that I had was wonderful. Just getting the 95 for Whiskey Advocate is well deserved. The Cascade
Thank
Moon
you.
that you just put together and just released edition number one was also very delicious, very sippable, and like you said, it's kind of a curious. It gets your curiosity going to what flavors can be put together. So I really, like I said, I cannot wait to see what's next
Thank you.
from you all.
Thank you. Well, we should talk again.
Absolutely.
We'll keep it
Nicole, thank
coming.
you for hopping on again with us.
You're so welcome. It was a real pleasure.
It's always great to talk to Nicole Austin, the distiller, general manager for Cascade Hollow Distilling down in Tennessee, home of George Dickel Tennessee whiskey. But today she was talking about the Cascade Moon releases. And if you want to hear that episode, though, that we did with her on George Dickel and her career, how she kind of got into the industry, it was released in early October, part of our Whiskey Weeks. You definitely need to check it out. It was a fun interview. She's got an amazing story to tell. And I also want to thank our sponsor for Whiskey Weeks again, Ober Gatlinburg. Come discover all the wonderful things that Ober Gatlinburg Ski Area and Amusement Park has to offer. Experience breathtaking views as you ride the aerial tramway from downtown Gatlinburg to the mountaintop to play, shop, and dine. Summer tubing, wildlife encounter, coaster, ice bumper cars, alpine slide, chairlift, year-round ice skating, and much more equals fun for everyone. During the winter months, enjoy snow tubing, skiing, or snowboarding, or playing the Cubby Snow Zone with your little ones. Fun festivals round out the calendar with Mayfest in the spring and Oktoberfest each fall. Mountaintop of fun and excitement high above Gatlinburg is waiting for you at Ober Gatlinburg Ski Area and Amusement Park. And as we leave the Whiskey Weeks giveaway, we go to our first little clue as to what's in our holiday Things We Love giveaway. And joining us now here is Josh Hurst, the Director of Hospitality for Pies Pints, which is definitely part of our Things We Love holiday giveaway. It's a restaurant near and dear to me. Josh, thanks for taking some time to talk good food and good drinks.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Now, for those that may not have ever heard of Pies and Pints, you guys, you're in a few states. You started out in West Virginia. You're a pizza and beer and some wine and drinks there. What can people expect if they were ever to go in and check out a Pies and Pints?
I would say, first and foremost, we simply want to give people an amazing experience. The vehicle that we use to do so is craft pizza and craft beer specifically. But as you mentioned, we also do get into wine, and we have other food items outside of pizza as well. We have amazing wings, just absolutely incredible wings, sandwiches, salads, etc. But first and foremost, the one thing that we want to do is simply make people happy and give them an amazing experience, whether they want to come in and have some chips and salsa, where they want a pizza, they want a beer, whatever it is. We just want to absolutely wow them with a great experience.
And to your point on those wings, those char grilled wings, they might be my most favorite wings I've ever had from anywhere. So yeah, they make you all do some great things with food.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. I'm not a wing person, generally speaking, but I absolutely love our wings, and I get them almost every week at one location or another.
Now, your role as director of hospitality, how did you kind of get into that, and what does that entail? I mean, obviously, I'm guessing, hospitality, that you want things to go well for people when they visit, but I'm guessing you do a little bit more than just that.
Yeah, it's it's a really really long story, but it's really really simple. I was off at grad school, and I kind of decided that wasn't for me. And so I moved back to Columbus, Ohio, and was looking to try and find something. I started taking some classes for another graduate program, some prerequisites for another program, and kind of stumbled upon Pies and Pints getting ready to open in Worthington, Ohio. And I was like, okay, well, I have a background in pizza, worked in pizza places my whole life. I love beer. I've been brewing beer for years. Like, this might be a perfect fit, a little part-time bartending gig while I'm back in school. And started and fell in love with it instantly. And within a week, I became a full-time bartender. And within about 2 weeks, I became the beer buyer. At that point, I knew this was it. This allows me to teach, which is what I was going to grad school for. It allows me to teach about beer and pizza and people, and everything was perfect. A few weeks after that, the owners asked if I could help them open up another store that was opening up in West Virginia. I said absolutely, and it's pretty much been a right place, right time, do everything I possibly can, just work like crazy. And the focus, kind of like I said initially, is my focus was always to make people happy, and whatever I could do to put a smile on your face, to give you this amazing experience was what I wanted to do. And it was that attitude, kind of paired with everything that we do at Pies, which has the same kind of philosophy. It was just a perfect fit. I slowly kind of got into, as we opened up more and more stores, got into a more kind of solidified role as the beverage director. And then just fairly recently, over the past year, I've been doing more and more kind of bigger, broader across the company, across pretty much everything you can imagine. And that kind of worked its way into the director of hospitality role.
I was going to say, I find it very interesting on your role there of just the love of beer, doing some little home brewing, things like that, because I'm going to skip around on my questions a little bit. But I mean, for Pies and Pints, craft pizza and beer, obviously that had to be a perfect fit. And how does that work for Pies and Pints? Because they are craft pizza, very specialty type pizzas, but they also love their beer and their craft beers too.
For me, my concept, when I look at the pairing of the two together, is I don't necessarily look at it has to be pizza A with beer A. I just look at it kind of bigger, broader scope, and I want people to enjoy whatever it is they're eating. We happen to have some amazing pizzas with all these incredible ingredients and combinations. And then we also like to bring in a bunch of really amazing, ridiculous beers that kind of go across the range from, really solid German Pilsners to really, really ridiculous and ambitious New England style IPAs. And I think, for me personally, obviously I'm a bit biased, but when you look at pizza and beer, they both offer one another just a fantastic palette to use as like a jumping off point. And I think, traditionally, especially when you look at pairings, with wine, it's always been varietal A goes with food item B. It's always been a very specific thing. And I think with pizza and beer, you can really open it up to almost anything. It's going to be tough to get to, a perfect pairing between like a simple salad and an imperial stout. But
Yeah, true, true.
outside of that, I think that it's a lot easier to really get people into both the food item and the beer that they really, really love.
Oh, well, and I think one thing that I've always loved about Pies and Pints, I've been going back since there was just the one location in Fayetteville, West Virginia, and we would drive like 45 minutes to an hour just to go up there when I was in college. And I always loved the kind of the beer pairing and pizza, because you touch on this perfectly. I would literally, there'd be like 10 of us, back pre-COVID days when you can have a nice large group at a table, and we'd get a couple of pitchers of different beers and like 4 different pizzas, and we'd all try different things.
Yep. Yeah, it almost always works. One of the things that we really do is, so again, like I kind of talked about with pairing, I don't think it necessarily has to be very specific. But one of the things that we like to do is when a guest comes in and we're talking to them, it's not simply, oh, I like IPAs. Cool. Well, what kind of IPAs do you like? What kind of flavors are you looking for? What are you going to get to eat today? And really try and guide them through not simply an IPA with pizza or whatever it happens to be, but, oh, we've got these, 6 or 7 different IPAs up there. We can really figure out which one might go well with your pizza today because of what your palate says. And so we really want to go through that experience with them and try and figure out what's going to be best for them. Instead of simply saying, oh, you're getting a grape and gorgonzola pizza, therefore you need to drink this beer. We want it to be an exploration. We want it to be interesting. We want it to be exciting and kind of most of all, just fun.
Well, and now you all are in I believe, is it 6 states now? Is that correct?
Yep.
So I mean, from West Virginia, you're home in a little town in Fayetteville, West Virginia, kind of a nice little whitewater rafting outdoorsy place, to Columbus, Cincinnati, my hometown now of Lexington, Richmond, Virginia, all these different places. How have you guys been able to grow over the years?
I would say you probably look at it with 2 different primary factors. You've got the quality, so whether it's the food, whether it's the beverages, paired with amazing people. So quality overall, but you have it both the things that you see in store as far as what you're going to be eating and drinking, but then the people that we have working at Pies and Pints. I mean, I spend pretty much all day, every day, talking to whether it's our managers, our beer buyers, servers and bartenders in the stores, everybody working the line. I'm constantly in there talking to everybody, and I think the people make it easy. So the product is there. The product is fantastic. You've obviously been enjoying it for quite a few years. Like I said, I worked in pizza. I've worked in pizza almost my whole life, and I don't think there's a better pizza out there. I think we are absolutely fantastic. So I think the product is there. Now we just needed to find a way to get it out there, and the people are what make that happen. Amazing people make it pretty easy to grow and expand.
And then one thing I believe you guys always have tried to do too is any time you go into a newer place, so to speak, before you were only in West Virginia, then you came into Ohio, you got a couple of spots in Columbus, I think a couple in Cincinnati. You always try to find local craft beers too, to highlight. How important of a tie is that to kind of get that local craft beer scene into Pies and Pints?
It's huge. There are amazing beers all over the world. You can walk into any bottle shop, any grocery store, any restaurant, any bar, and you're going to be able to find a fantastic beer. You look at 10, 15 years ago, there weren't as many, but they were still there. Now, there's a lot. There are a lot, thousands and thousands of breweries that are available almost any day of the week. And when you look at locally sourced products, not only it's not across the board, but you're almost always going to be getting something that's a little bit fresher. If it's made right down the street or right across town, it's going to get to you a little bit quicker than something that is made halfway around the world. So you look at that, and you combine that locality with the fact that it's part of the community that you're in as well, and it just creates kind of that perfect symbiotic relationship that just works for everybody. And so yes, we always want to focus on quality first, but locality is right there as well. It has to be good, but if it's good, we want the local stuff.
And for you, how difficult is it, or how much fun is it for you to kind of go out there and look for those different types of beers, whether it's super local, regionally, or even maybe more on a national scale?
It's really easy, it's really difficult, and it's really fun and really challenging all at the same time. Kind of as I just mentioned, there are a lot of breweries, and even when I started with this company 8 years ago, there were a lot. There weren't anywhere near as many as there are right now. And it used to be a situation where, I would know, like in person, know almost every single brewery that was out there that we were able to serve. And that's getting to be a little bit more difficult. That being said, I'm in contact with almost every single, brewery that we do business with, and almost every single local brewery in any of our cities and states we're in communication with on a weekly or monthly basis. And it's one of those things like in Lexington, when we looked to open up that store, the first thing I did was okay, we're going to open up a store in Lexington. The first thing I did was go down and I went to all the breweries and I tried to talk to everybody and try all their beers. And, again, really wanted to develop amazing selection in all of our locations based around the local breweries. And so back then when we opened, it was the three big ones were Blue Stallion, West Sixth, and Country Boy. And I still to this day have great relationships with all of them, as do the buyers in the stores. And it's fun, but it is definitely challenging.
I was gonna say it's one of those things that you love, but as time goes on, just so many more options keep popping up. I'm sure makes it a little bit more difficult to just keep that personal relationship with everyone.
It is, but one of the things that I always say is, obviously we have 15 stores in 6 states, and you get to that level, and people start looking at you like you're a chain. You're a chain. Okay, well, yeah, whatever. We still make everything in house, just like we did day one back in Fayetteville, in the kitchen, and we still take that exact same attention to detail on the beverage side. Every store has their own buyer. Every buyer gets to bring in, almost everything that they want. We want those relationships. Like, we will take 10 times as much time as necessary to make sure that we are doing it right for that store, for the guests that come into that store. So yes, the food menu is the same everywhere. But I can promise you, we spend a lot of time and attention on making each store as unique as possible.
And I must say, you guys have done a great job on that. And my last question for you is, we've talked a lot about the craft beers, but you're a pizza place at heart. That's kind of what you do well. How do you guys come up with these unique creations? Some of the recent ones, I know it was, I think, supposed to be seasonal, was the street corn pizza. Now it's, I think, full time on the menu. I love the chipotle chicken. My wife loves the steak and mushroom.
Yeah.
And now you guys, I think, even have a date night pizza, which is, for those that are thinking, ooh, I take my man or lady out there for a date. It's not exactly like that. But how do you guys come up with these, cool combinations that just work so well?
That's a really, really good question. And the answer kind of goes back to something I'd said earlier. It's the people. And so when you look at, kind of the chicken Gouda, which is probably my favorite pizza that we have, it going back to Fayetteville, and one of the initial kitchen managers, from pretty much, again, from day one, it's been a collaborative effort. And so we always encourage, anybody that's working in our stores, any guest, that has any suggestions, let us know. And we will take all those suggestions and then try and see what we can do with them. But it's mainly just the creative people that we have working in our restaurants. And, when I'm going to all these different stores and I'm, talking to everybody, people are coming up and saying, "Oh my gosh, what about this? What about this?" And oftentimes I'll say like, "Okay, well, yeah, do it. Show me. Let's see what it is." And they'll make it, and take pictures of it and figure out how they made it, and then we all kind of collaboratively talk about it and see if it's feasible and if it's not. It's kind of been that collaborative process from day one, but it all just goes back to just really amazing creative people that know what they're doing and know how to combine all these really unique ingredients.
Well, folks, if you haven't yet, I know they're not everywhere, but they are in 6 states, some big cities. So if you're out visiting, say Columbus, Cincinnati, Richmond, Virginia, maybe even Morgantown, Charleston, West Virginia, or the original Fayetteville, West Virginia, you got to check them out. The Pies and Pints has been pretty much close to my heart from about 10 years ago, back when they just had one tiny little spot in Fayetteville, West Virginia, where they were making great pizza with some nice local beers there. And Josh, I can't thank you enough for coming on to talk about it. And like I said, folks, you got to check them out.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
It was a lot of fun talking with Josh Hurst, Director of Hospitality for Pies and Pints, and earlier with Nicole Austin, just a master distiller and general manager of Cascade Hollow Distilling in Tennessee, where she got to talk about the Cascade Moon series they just released there. And not just George Dickel. They're a little more than that down there in Tennessee. Remember, you can find past episodes pretty much where podcasts are available. We keep adding new platforms, so pretty sure you can find us on your favorite one. Tell all your friends. And don't forget to visit our friend One Sip Beer Review at One Sip Beer Review on Instagram. They do daily beer reviews or near daily beer reviews. They have some cool giveaways from time to time, and they also just have a lot of fun with their videos. So check them out at One Sip Beer Review on Instagram. Next week, we talk to Brandon Hunt of Bourbon Charity. Who knows what other guests we might have on. We got a lot of fun to close out 2020. Until next time, cheers, everyone.